Hello guys, welcome back for our 6th devlog, which is all about how we developed the boss fight, as well as the beginning of the second world and revamping the control scheme thanks to this comment. The first thing we needed to do was to design the layout of the level, as well as the sprites for the level. Since we already had most of the sprites needed for previous levels, the design phase did not take long. The only sprites that we needed to create were all the sprites regarding the boss, such as attack animation. The only other sprite that was needed was a simple target sprite to show where the bullets, bombs, and turrets were going to drop. After the level had been laid out, we started coding the story elements of the game into the boss fight. Once again, this did not take long, as this only included a few lines of dialogue before the level started. Now we needed to spawn in the enemies. In the end, we decided to have enemies spawn when the boss had lost a third of his HP and 2/3 of his HP. The idea was to get something similar to Towerfall, in which enemies would spawn in between boss stages, and when the enemies were alive, the boss can't take damage. However, rather than the enemies being a mild nuisance, we decided to make these enemy stages harder. At this stage, we now had a functioning boss fight. You could damage the boss, fight the enemies, and various objects such as bombs, grenades, and turrets would drop from the sky, making it reasonably difficult. However, there was one slight problem. The boss had no attacks other than to spawn objects and enemies. This meant that you could just walk up to him with grief and deal damage. The only challenging part was when the enemy spawned and the boss became invincible. In order to prevent this tactic being used, we added a sword attack to the boss. After a couple of frames of animation later, the boss could now attack the players with a sword. However, this may have stopped Grief and Template from running up to him and murdering him, but for Jedi and Quint it didn't work as they have ranged attacks. We had two solutions to this problem. Change the boss's sword attack to a ranged attack of some sort, or spawn in enemies at the start so the boss has time to flood the battlefield with turrets, meaning the player had to at least dodge shots while they sniped the boss. In the end, we opted to go with the latter option, as the first option would have made the boss fight too difficult. Now, all that was left to do was playtesting the game, making sure everything works and the boss fight is at the right difficulty. During the playtesting phase, we encountered two main issues that we had missed in the design process. The first issue was that there was no visual cue for when the boss went invincible. As the creators of the game, we knew when the boss was going invincible. However, the players don't and will interpret this invincibility as a bug. To fix this problem, once again we came up with two solutions. Make indestructible walls spawn in front of him when he is invincible, or giving him a visual shield. In the end, we decided to give him a shield because we already had some shield sprites from other abilities. The other problem is that when the objects would spawn, you wouldn't know which would spawn because all the targets look the same. This was a simple fix in which we just designed different targets for each of the three objects. After we had finished designing the boss fight, we started designing the second world. This involved lots of new sprites that needed to be put into the game, such as new enemy sprites, new environment sprites, and new characters. The second world was going to feature 9 new enemies and 2 new playable characters. We are also reusing most of the enemies in the first world, meaning there will be a lot of variation in enemies between levels. It will still be set on the same planet as the first world, meaning most of the environment sprites are going to be reused. However, the second world will visit a more mountainous area of the planet as well as richer cities. This meant that grass sprites were created to represent the richer areas, and mountain sprites were also created as a different form of destructible walls. After we had placed out all the levels, we went through and coded all the enemy spawning and character spawning and all that kind of stuff. However, we still needed to code the win conditions, the story, and the special events into the level. Unfortunately, this is all we've been able to do so far. The next of the second world will come in the next devlog. Just a quick note before the devlog ends. Before, you used to have to click the move button to move and the combat button to shoot. However, thanks to this comment, we realized that this is not the best control system. In the end, we decided to make WASD to move and shift WASD to combat. This way players do not have to move a mouse to switch between movement and combat. Anyway, thank you for watching till the end. At the current moment, we are grinding away and are aiming to have the game released by the end of the month. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any news or updates. Thank you. and enjoy the rest of your day.